Have you ever discovered something unbelievable? Something life-changing? Something so profound that it changes the way you see the world? And then, when you finally summon the words to tell someone, you're met with a condescending head nod and that classic line that your generation will save us.
Jessie, a white woman in her late teens with long dark brown hair, walks out of a train station. She has a backpack and is carrying a poster. Jessie wears tortoiseshell effect glasses. She is smiling gently.
Now, imagine that thing is existential, that it transcends politics and defies borders. You've watched people deny it, downplay it, and use it to further their own agenda. There are so many others that see it too, but you're all deemed too young to have a say. Meanwhile, the rest of the world is sleepwalking to its demise, and you're powerless, helpless, voiceless.
Youth Strike for Climate March.
When you look out at the world, you see only greed, cynicism, and a ruling class. You're simultaneously paralysed by anxiety and broken down by the guilt and fear of inaction. And all the while, everyone is saying that it's your generation that will save them.
A group of young people, banging drums, holding posters and a large banner, march through a city centre.
I'm growing up in a world of climate chaos. It's also a world in which I cannot vote. A world where I do not have a say in my future, and where the course of my life will largely be determined by white men in suits. It's not fair. But what if I started a movement of people whose voices are absent in decision making? And what if we reached into the heart of power and demanded change? Now there's an interesting idea.
Jessie being filmed in cycling gear in a town square. A small group cycling along quiet roads. A camera person films from the back of a bike.
My name is Jessie Stevens, and in 2021 I created a movement of people cycling to the COP26 summit in Glasgow. My journey began on the south coast of the UK, and along the way I spoke to as many people as possible so I could bring everybody's voice to the so-called heart of power. But make no mistake, this is not a hero's journey.
Not a hero's journey. From above, the group cycle. Trees in autumn colour line the rain-soaked road.
My name's Jessie and I'm a climate-concerned young person, and in 2021 I founded the movement People Pedal Power, which is made up of climate-concerned people all across the country moving towards COP to raise awareness for the issue. When you know about the crisis, you want to do anything you can to make it better. I think it's that human instinct to want to be in control, and I suppose when you feel so out of control, taking action is one of the only things you can do to make yourself feel better. And I think that can mean that as a teenager you don't have that same carefree existence because you're constantly feeling you have to give time to making a difference, and you can't just sit back and watch it all. It's not easy to rest or to just relax because you know that time is slipping away. I'm nervous because I've never done anything like this before, so I think it's going to be quite nerve-wracking tomorrow morning. But I think as soon as you guys said, as soon as you get on the road, it's going to be a bit easier and get into the rhythm. I think just the mental and body stuff, because I've never cycled that far for that long, day after day. So I think it's a bit of all of that, all muddled into one, yeah. COP stands for Conference of the Parties, which is basically a big UN climate conference where diplomats and delegates and politicians from all over the world come to discuss the climate crisis and what we can do to mitigate it.
Has COP of the past been a success?
No, because then we wouldn't have had 26 of them. Yeah, and nobody wants mechanical, so I'm really worried about that, because I just don't want like my bottom bracket to fall off or something like that. It's all new to me. I think we often live quite contained lives, and when you do adventures like this, you really do see the kindness of people, and you see the collaboration between people, which I think we just keep our heads down and get on with life. So I think it's going to be nice to really share experiences with people and sort of take that unknown and, yeah. I really, really wanted to attend the summit to bring the youth voice and the perspective along with many other young people. But then I found that there was two big issues that were stopping me from getting there. The first big issue was that it was really expensive for me to get there sustainably. And to me, this seemed really wrong because, to be able to make sustainable transport infrastructure more accessible to everybody, it needs to be cheaper. And that's the only way that we're going to be able to fully decarbonise our transport sector. The second issue that I faced was gatekeeping. I naively thought that COP would be a really good, easy place to get into. I thought it'd be an amazing experience for everyone to share their ideas about how to mitigate the climate crisis and make a difference. But what I found out was very, very different. It's such a heavily politicised event with so much gatekeeping that it means that the average people whose voices need to be heard the most, because the climate crisis is going to impact them the first and the hardest, aren't heard and they can't get in. And so that's where the idea of people pedal power came from, because I just thought both of these issues are so wrong, and how can we both bring people together to mobilise against this and for this, and how can we spread more awareness and understanding about it. That sounded very wordy and political. Is that all right?
The journey was starting from my hometown in Newton Abbot and travelling 570 miles up the UK to Glasgow. That was 500 miles more than I'd ever cycled back to back. On the way, we'd be passing through hilly Devon, the flat Midlands, mountainous Lake District, and the rolling hills of the Scottish Lowlands. We planned a bunch of overnight stops with a few rest days thrown in for good measure, and we hoped to be in Glasgow after 12 long days of pedalling.
Newton Abbot. People mill around in high-vis jackets holding posters. Jessie and a group of fellow cyclists ride away.
And just like that, the road stretched out 600 miles in front of us. 600 miles worth of opportunities for collaboration and conversation. And what better way to meet new people than to ask a bunch of wonderful strangers to ride our support cargo bike for different stages of the journey.
Social media post. Huge thanks to Graham, our first cargo bike relay rider. Next up is Ben.
When I first got on, I was quite concerned because I almost fell off straight away. But then Graham told me to look straight ahead, and now I feel kind of confident now, apart from all the extra rucksacks that are going on it.
That's Ben, our second cargo rider and father of 9-year-old climate-concerned Polly. You didn't mishear me. She's 9 years old and anxious about the climate crisis.
When I explained to Polly, my daughter, that you were doing this,
yeah,
and we were talking about what she was like. Well, how can I kind of contribute, or how can I tell Jessie what I think? And we went with the letter and really expressing what I think a lot of young people feel, that she doesn't, she feels angry about it, but she doesn't feel that she can do anything about it.
I think it's just that young people just feel so powerless, and I know I have in past for so long.
Yeah.
And doing this kind of action makes me feel empowered and makes me feel like I've got a small amount of control on these huge uncontrollable things which hang over my future, I often feel.
Dear Jessie, my name is Polly Sutton and I am 9 years old. Thank you for raising awareness about climate change through your cycle to COP26 and highlighting the need for real action, not just words. I feel like politicians talk about climate change a lot, but never actually take any real action. The policies they decide on now will have a direct effect on our future. Sadly, I'm not old enough to join you, but I am extremely excited that my daddy is going to ride the cargo bike for a bit. I hope that all the people you talk to on your ride are as passionate and caring about the environment as you and I are. I wish you a lot of luck. Polly.
Polly's handwritten letter. Jessie cycling, casting a long shadow from the late sun.
I know it's the oldest cliche in the book, but that first day really was quite a whirlwind. But what really stuck with me was Polly's letter. Of all the people I would pass en route to COP, how many really cared about the climate crisis? Certainly not everybody. Something I was optimistic about though, and something that I didn't necessarily expect, was just how brilliant the act of cycling is for facilitating conversation and connection.
Like every person's just, you go in straight at the deep end, you cut out all the usual fluff of daily life and exchanges about the weather and what their job is, and you just jump in at the important stuff and the interesting stuff. Like I was chatting to that guy about cycling to Sweden. It was like, I don't know anything about him, but it was just so much fun, and it's such a good way to connect in a kind of relaxed way but important way. And yeah.
No one mentioned the 16% hill.
The road rises steeply ahead.
I heard that.
The screen fades to black. Taunton. The group ride along a country lane with green fields either side. The sky is clear and blue and the sun peeks through the trees' branches. Someone is removing a tyre and replacing the inner tube.
Yeah, it's all about experience, eh?
All about the challenge.
They ride on. Blurred social media posts whiz up the screen, then stop at Day 2, over 100 miles of our journey complete. Today we had the company of Liz and Patrick on our cargo bike.
Is it a message that you want to tell people when you get there? Or is the message itself the journey?
I think it's both. I think with the journey we're just trying to highlight the power of collective action, of kindness of strangers, of what happens and the power we have when we all come together to demand change and want a different world. I think the mainstream media really did want to put me on the pedestal and make me the hero. And actually, say when I did an interview, I would always make it very clear and ask them to keep adding in that it was a movement, it wasn't just me. And that's not because I'm trying to be like, oh, you know, I'm the hero, but don't think about me, you know. It's actually that it wasn't about me, it was about everybody. The media is so black and white, there's no scope for the grey area of actually community action and movements and strength in numbers is going to be the thing that's going to make the difference. We just want that easy story and that easy narrative of here's one person doing something cool, and then it's just like, but what about everybody else?
They wait to let a herd of cows cross ahead. They ride on along narrow country lanes in the sunshine. Portishead. A car pulls away, exhaust fumes bellowing out. A queue of container trucks.
Yesterday we bought a box of 3 Magnums and there was only 2 of us, so I had one this morning for breakfast. Second breakfast, I had a good hearty bagel and porridge. Started the day off well, but second breakfast was a vegan chocolate Magnum. And I stand by my decisions, though feeling slightly sick now.
An aerial view of brightly coloured riders. A young black woman rides the heavily laden cargo bike alongside Jessie.
What have I done?
That's Vera, our 5th cargo bike rider. She joined us with her husband Matt, our 6th cargo bike rider, with a tandem bike in tow so they could ride back to Portishead at the end of the leg. Brilliant.
Okay. One thing I've struggled with is that helplessness and anxiety feeling with everything that's going on in the world.
Totally.
And you know, you kind of feel like we need. It's great that as individuals we can take those small steps. You know.
Yeah.
Cutting out new products and plastics and buying less and that. But when you think about it, it's a drop in the ocean, and we need bigger change.
Yeah.
We need our leaders to make those changes, and I find that they're not really doing that in terms of that effect on mental health and things. Do you find the same? Do you deal with that a bit, like anxiety, or are you quite optimistic?
I think I flip between the two.
Yeah.
I think some days I'm so thoughtful about, I can't go in the car, I can't do this, it's, 20 minutes in the car, I feel so guilty. And other days I go, you know what, there's people flying their private jets all over the world right now.
Yeah.
What difference does this make?
Yeah.
And I think it's so hard. And these personal and political action or systems change, they interact so much, and big corporations are so happy to place the onus on the individual, because it means they can get away with what they're doing for far longer.
Yeah.
All of this got me thinking more and more about where responsibility lies. At any given moment, who is in charge of saving the planet? After all, it was BP, one of the biggest oil giants on Earth, who coined the term carbon footprint. And they did it with the explicit intention of shifting blame and responsibility for the climate crisis away from themselves and onto individuals. And more importantly, onto individuals who have barely contributed to the climate crisis.
The people who cause the least impact on the climate are feeling it the most.
No, absolutely. So I'm from Malawi, which is one of the poorest countries in the world. One of the, in terms of carbon footprint of people and our activities is extremely low.
Of course.
But the changes that we're seeing from, climate change and the like, it's drastic,
Yeah.
We're getting a lot more droughts, heavy rainfall, the same. But it's kind of like, we haven't reaped the rewards of this,
the growth and all of that.
We haven't got all of that, but we're suffering.
Yeah.
And it's really hard. And again, it's difficult to convince people there to sort of change their lifestyles as well, because everyone's aspiring to the life that people have in the West.
Yes. That's so interesting.
Yeah, and so it's like, no, you got to cut down on this, you got to cut down on that, but we haven't got that yet. We haven't got there yet, and
totally.
The group are cycling along a quiet country road, lush green fields either side. A man at the front of the group rides the cargo bike.
Weird. Okay. Just cure it with speed.
Vera and her partner head away on their tandem. Low sun sends shafts of light across the group as they continue their journey along the quiet road. Tewkesbury. Jessie is putting on shoes.
Am I going to be judged on how I tie my laces?
No.
I feel it could be a controversial game. I feel like in this world we're so divided. I'm sure someone's got a thing about how you tie your laces.
How do you tie your laces, Jessie?
If you don't double knot, who are you?
Do I sense judgment?
I am the judger. In a world that's so divided, I am the judger.
Day 4 and my body and mind weren't just surviving, they were thriving. Sorry, really cringy, I know, but it was true. Every morning so many different bikes would turn up, each carrying yet more potential for conversation. I mean, we would never run into Mel, just as she was finishing her hand cycle around Britain, if we'd have been in a car.
Mel Nichols.
The bike can literally take you anywhere, can't it? It can take you on any and every journey, it doesn't matter how short or how far. Like, I started to think last night, I've cycled around Britain, it hasn't quite sunk in, but then I sort of every now and again have this like, oh my goodness. And I would never think to do that in a car for many reasons, but you can go wherever.
It's like cars, the bigger the car is, the more freedom people think they have. It's bigger, it's more spacious, but actually the less freedom they have because they're so disconnected from the outside world. Whereas on the bike, you're on a tiny small thing, and it's quite, you feel quite vulnerable sometimes, but actually you're so exposed to the elements and nature that actually it's such a better way to travel. But it's like this urge for people with wealth and just status want these big cars, but it's the perceived power and status that you get from it, but it doesn't mean anything, you just get more disconnected.
Exactly.
Paralympian and ultra-cyclist Mel leads the group on her recumbent hand cycle through the town.
To have all those different bikes, I have the fat bike, and then there's the road bikes, and then we've got a hand bike, we've got the cargo bike, and it's just brilliant to have all these bikes.
Yeah, I like that bike on a bike.
Yeah, we got a bike, all these different people, but everyone's just riding a bike and just go, you can get anywhere. If you all go the same way, you can all go on a journey on all these different bikes. It's just beautiful.
One thing that was missing though was more young people. Call a strike and the streets are full of us. But from a young age, we're not taught that riding bikes is a way of protesting. In fact, we're not taught about the climate crisis at all.
Why is there no climate education in the curriculum? I think for so long adults haven't thought it's that important to teach young people about, which I find quite baffling because the climate crisis is our future. So why wouldn't you teach about it? Because schools are meant to set us up for our future and careers and being prosperous in life, but actually you're not teaching us about the main thing that's going to impact us. I think it just doesn't really add up.
It's interesting to talk to other young people about how they view it, because I feel like there's been so many adults on this journey, and I mean adults are great because they've got lots of power, but actually how cool would it be if we had the voice that we could make change?
I mean, young people's voices are so precious because I guess that's the effect is it's going to affect us,
totally.
And the future generations.
It's really important for young people to learn about the climate crisis at school, because that's how we can support people's mental health as well, because climate anxiety and all of these things are skyrocketing because it's like a taboo subject and we're not taught about it in the most open and safe way possible.
How do you feel when you're on this school strike?
That it's coming to light a lot more, Young people are demanding for their voices to be heard a lot more, which is really good.
It's quite an impactful experience, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
I always come away feeling really positive and like we can make a change, because I think sometimes when you're sitting in your bedroom at home and you're looking on Instagram and it's just all so doom and gloom, and then you see the sort of reality TV and you think, well, they've got all this money and they're not doing anything, and we're just looking at those kind of, I suppose, more frivolous stuff in life. It's so nice to be with other young people who feel the same.
Yeah.
From low, the riders cycle by. With the light fading, their back lights flash red. Standing by the side of the road, Jessie is eating a Welsh cake.
It's a bit dry. It's proper pluggy, isn't it?
Easy Collective. They're amazing women and very good at cargo bike handling.
And they do like cool riding without brakes, which sounds a bit crazy, but they seem to enjoy it. Not on the road.
Jessie rides in front through a long tunnel top lit by a row of fluorescent lights. The end of the tunnel is black. It's evening and the sun sets far on the horizon. The screen fades to black. Telford.
What was your dinner last night?
We were already talking about dinner this morning. Not a good look. You can tell we're hungry. Falafel, couscous, peas. Lay on the floor eating a carrot because I was so tired.
What weird and wonderful things riding bikes can do to you. Climate anxiety is real and it's a lot to deal with. But when tackling the issue head on, you've got to find things that make you laugh. And weird food combinations seem to be my speciality.
Hot water, hot chocolate sachet from the Airbnb today. Wasn't going to let that one slip. Cocoa Pops. Don't knock till you try it. When all you need is sugar.
And I found a packet of Cocoa Pops in my pannier, and then I just tipped them in and they kind of had like a marshmallowy consistency. So that was quite good. Yeah.
Meanwhile, Russ, our 13th cargo bike rider, was getting a little bit distracted by the scenery.
Well, look at this. This is amazing. We're gonna catch Jessie up. We're coming. You're not far off.
Ross works for eLove, a cargo bike delivery and logistics organisation based in Macclesfield. So really, he's a dab hand at a cargo bike, even if we did stick him on a canal towpath for a bit.
I remember when we said everything will happen. And we knew we'd never fail. We would never die. I wanna forget myself again, so that everything can happen. Will you please call me by my name and tell me little lies?
Warrington.
We will never die. We will never die.
What do we have to break out?
The emergency kick.
Why?
Canal towpath hit us all a bit hard. Particularly the tyres and the bums.
Jessie rides through the pouring rain, grimacing for the camera.
As COP drew nearer, I was starting to wonder what would ultimately shape the policy decisions and climate commitments we all hoped would come from the conference. Would the science be listened to? Because the facts are pretty stark.
Yes, I work on ice in Antarctica and understanding how it's changing in a changing climate. So why certain areas are melting faster, what are the different things that contribute to that. So is it that the air temperature is getting higher? Is it that the oceans around the continent are getting warmer?
Yeah.
And trying to put some kind of physics understanding behind that, so understand the kind of physics of the system.
Okay.
So that people can feed that into these predictive models they use to forecast what's going to happen in the future in terms of sea level rise.
Totally.
Because of course the Antarctic ice sheets are the largest storage of fresh water we have on our planet.
Yeah.
And if they all melt, it's going to raise sea level by a huge amount, 60, 70 metres or so globally. And that's going to put an awful lot of places underwater. So we want to know the timescale under which that might happen, and understand which areas are going to be most vulnerable first.
And how do you actually, when you get all these facts through, how do you deal with it? How do you not get paralysed by, because you're at the, you're at the real big end of all the facts and seeing it and going to the Arctic, and how do you sort of mentally deal with that?
I think because it's been one of these things, and this goes back to communication, that's been really well understood in polar science for such a long time. Yeah. It's somehow not, it's not new and it's not as shocking to people who've been working on it, and that really tells you that we've not been communicating it very well, because it is shocking to other people. And a lot of these things have been known about for a very long time in the kind of the research community that look at them.
Yeah, so, totally.
I suppose that's maybe why it's not quite so shocking or stressful. But it can be. You do definitely feel like it's, what's the point sometimes?
Yeah, totally.
Because you're doing all this very, very fine scale research.
Yeah, very much.
But actually it doesn't change the big picture very much.
The heavily laden cargo bike follows at the rear of the group. It's nighttime and dark, with just the cyclist lights and reflective gear shining in the headlamps. They negotiate narrow, unlit paths, lights catching glimpses of narrow tree trunks and shrubs. Lancaster.
And hopefully it's going to stop raining. Otherwise I'm going to be really cross.
What do you have for breakfast?
Chocolate porridge, oats, water, raisins and chocolate. And peas. I had peas for breakfast. Didn't have an apple, didn't have a banana, didn't have anything like that. We had a bag of peas. So I had peas in a glass and I drank them.
Rain clouds dominate the horizon.
Okay, full disclosure, we'd had a chat the morning we left Lancaster about just how sensible it was riding into an amber weather warning. There was set to be widespread flooding and gale force winds, and our route was going right through the eye of the storm. The irony of the situation was not lost on us either. This was yet another extreme weather event occurring in the UK, something which was a once-in-a-decade occurrence not long ago. Yet there we were, watching roads become rivers and diverting east to avoid a couple of bridges that had quite literally been washed away.
Rolling hills are shrouded in low rain clouds. Sodden riders lift the cargo bike over a boggy riverside path.
I think it'll be alright now that we're over those reeds. Oh, I think that's sewage. Oh no, is it? I think it might be.
River crossings complete, and we finally made it to Scotland. And who was there to welcome us but Stephen from Bikes for Refugees, who opened our eyes to more of the stark impacts that the climate crisis will bring to our collective doorstep.
Sun's out, basking in the sunshine.
You need to take your coat off, Steve. It's so hot.
Bikes for Refugees, it started, I set it up about 4.5 years ago. We're here and we want to raise some awareness around climate refugees as well.
Totally,
which is a
big mass movement of people ever, isn't it? Are you worried about what's to come for Bikes for Refugees and the increased need for them?
It's estimated that by 2050 there will be 1.2 billion, not million, but 1.2 billion displaced people as a direct result of climate change, food and water shortages, and disasters, climate disasters around the world. 1.2 billion people displaced communities. So I think it's not. It should be a wake-up call to us all.
Under a canopy of trees, Jessie freewheels ahead, a carpet of autumn leaves on either side of the narrow road. The screen fades. Moffat.
Last big day.
Tell us about the last couple of days, because we haven't had the camera out much.
That's because it's been atrocious weather and we've all been pretty miserable. So that's why the camera hasn't been out. But today, the rain's supposed to be clearing. Final push. Well, no, second to final push, but the final big day. And for our final big day, we were joined by Naomi from Cargo Bike Movement and James, our adventure photographer. And they rode the whole day with us on one electric cargo bike. Or actually, to be specific, Naomi pedalled all day while James chatted and took photographs.
On a cargo bike, a man faces backwards filming. The group ride along rain-soaked country roads, low clouds in the distance.
The storm was passing and we were only 48 hours away from the start of COP. But actually, I just wanted to keep going.
From above, the group cycle along a quiet country road. A forest of trees in autumn colour fills the scene, and on the horizon are low hills covered with a patchwork of fields and forest.
As the rain passed, we were all filled with this overwhelming sense of optimism. The climate crisis is scary, but you don't always have to look hard to find solutions.
It's so cool to have you today on your really cool cargo bike, and like having had the cargo bike the whole day, the whole way, is just like highlighting those solutions. We didn't want the movement just to be about shouting about what's wrong and the lack of infrastructure and all of that. We wanted to say, this is all really bad, but here's the solution. And it's so cool to have those kind of two conversations about what's wrong and what needs to change, but also look at what we can do and like have your enthusiasm and have like sort of such a unique cargo bike movement, which we hope won't be unique in the future because we want it to be widespread. But to have those kind of like sort of views into the future of what things could be like.
I think you're right, and it's actually very exciting how many different cargo bike organisations are setting up across the UK. Like you said, you had Russ join you from Macclesfield, and there's loads going on in London, and there's stuff going on in Bristol and Oxford and Lancashire, and you know, there's so many things happening. It's just a matter of A, joining that up, but B, like talking about it and saying like, it's kind of not a new idea. And you mentioned like post workers going back to that style, or like this style of delivery. Like, we've done it before, so let's it worked fine. Like maybe we needed a bit more investment and stuff put in to keep up with the level of deliveries that there are. But it's not impossible, it's not ludicrous, and we could just do it if there was the will and the desire to do so, I think.
I think it's that will from people and politics to actually make these changes and to implement them, because actually it's all there. It's the mental health, it's the lack of congestion, it's all of these like hundreds of different problems that are solved, and it's like if there was the will, people could actually join the dots together and say, here's the solution to everything, then there you go.
It's a solution to most things.
Not everything.
I'm a fan of cargo bikes. I'm sure it's going to solve everything.
No, but most things you can do with a cargo bike.
You've ridden one?
Not yet.
Oh, Jessie, you sort that right out.
I know. Exciting. I'm excited to go on it, actually.
Yeah, we should just put you on it. Right.
I'll give up tomorrow and I'll just be like, I'm not leaving. I'm sitting on there.
Take me in my chariot.
Jessie and an older woman dance on gravel.
We're done, we're ready. We're like almost toasty.
Ready for musical jump?
1, 2, 3.
Social media post shows Jessie and her mum leaping high. Day 10 of Ride to COP26. The rain has stopped and we've spent the morning discussing solutions to the climate crisis. They're right in front of us. If only we took that leap and used them.
It was just like the first day that the rain had really gone for so many days, and we were sort of starting to thaw and dry out. And Catherine, the filmmaker, had 2 punctures on, like a double puncture on her tyres, and we all got involved in the pumping up and sung songs to help. And it sounds really, really silly, but it was just really joyful and really fun.
7, 6, 5, 4, 3.
And it just felt really chill and happy, because I think the days before had been a bit stressful and quite draining. To be with really lovely people and just have that really fun time was just so lovely.
Finding the joyful moments in an issue like the climate crisis is so important. And if this journey has taught me anything, it's that there's nothing quite like an adventure for moments of pure joy and bringing people together.
The group rides up hills, over bridges and past swollen rivers.
And is any adventure truly complete without drama before the finish line? Mum had got the train up to join us for the final few days, but her bike had given up just 20 miles outside of Glasgow. But who should pop up at that very moment? Stephen from Bikes for Refugees and his trusty cargo bike, with just enough room for Mum to cruise into Glasgow on the back.
Jessie's mum holds her arm up in triumph as the group ride on. Glasgow.
Here we were after 12 days of pedalling and a year's worth of planning. We'd made it to COP26. The autumnal colours had turned urban, and the enormity of the next few weeks weighed heavy in the air. But before anything too serious, I still hadn't actually ridden the cargo bike. No time like the present.
Jessie rides the cargo bike.
Don't look at me! Oh, they're not! Phew! This is light. Why was everyone complaining?
I feel like such a different person. I feel so much older. It's so weird. And I think as a young person, you change so much in like a few months. And I think that experience changed me so much. I go back as a little tiny young person. And I know I don't look any different, but you feel different. And it's just, yeah, interesting.
Riding along the city cycle paths.
Getting to Glasgow felt really serious. It felt like the next part of the journey was about to begin. But it also felt like this big dark cloud came over everything. I mean, it was quite dark because, you know, it was Scotland in the autumn, but it metaphorically felt like the energy changed. I think everyone was very edgy all around Glasgow because of what was going to happen. It was very unknown.
Protesters of all ages are gathered on the streets. Some have flags.
So I think what was weird about COP was you had the green zone and the blue zone. So the green zone was where you had all the brands and it was in the science centre. And that was weird because it was very sort of greenwashy. It was very much, look at what we're doing, open to the public, let's come and engage in climate, but actually you're just trying to sell me stuff, which felt very wrong. And then you had this completely different thing, which was the blue zone, which I also was very lucky to go into, which was close to the public, where you had the politicians and diplomats and all of these things where all the decisions were being made. And it almost felt like the green zone was like a distraction from what was going on in the blue zone. And it just felt like a real diverting of attention away from actually what was going on, or more importantly, what wasn't going on. But what I found a lot of joy in was, for the first week I was in the blue zone, and then the second week I was out on the streets, going to community groups and engaging in all the other people that I'd spent so long on Zoom with or on video calls making plans with, to then be able to have that personal connection and really share ideas and talk and find the joy in sort of our movement was amazing. Because I think in the blue zone it was so serious and so depressing. People try to make the climate movement really stressful and serious, but actually the only way we'll go forward is if we find joy in it and we find hope, and we can have those connections with each other, because it's a human crisis. So to sort of strip that away like the blue zone did and make it very clinical and sterile was just completely the wrong thing to do.
Youth Strike Blue Zone Walkout. Environmental Education Summit.
COP was dubbed as this one last chance to save the planet. And that's not true, because every day is a chance to make a difference. And also, we're not going to save the planet, we're actually saving ourselves, we're saving humanity and a livable future, because the planet will be just fine without us. So I think though that messaging is very wrong, but I think even if it was that one last chance to save the planet, I think it really highlighted that to me, and I think many other people who almost gave the politicians that one last chance, thinking, you know, I hope this will be different. I hope this might be the one, for whatever reason, that change will happen and it'll be meaningful and we'll get straight to the point and start happening now. And because that didn't happen, and it was just like every other COP, a failure and full of empty promises and lack of action, it really highlighted that actually politics is all fine and will make change, but people really do have the power. And I think it kind of made many people turn away from that political sphere and actually just put their energy into causing people power to make the difference.
Protesters bang their drums.
COP26 was the so-called heart of power for 2 weeks. Global leaders coming together to save the world, yet turning their backs on the hordes of people banging on their doors. asking and demanding for their futures. I don't have the answers to the climate crisis. I'm not the hero of this story, but as a collective, we have power. We can listen to each other. We can learn from each other. In her letter to me, way back at the start of the ride, 9-year-old Polly said she hoped everyone I met on the journey to COP is as passionate and caring about the environment as she and I are. Well, Polly, I can tell you that they were, and that we can change the course of our future.
Our future! Our future! What do we want? Climate justice! When do we want it? Now!
But to all the politicians and decision makers out there, the clocks are striking 13, and you haven't even looked at your watch.
Not a hero's journey.
Oh no, anxiety creeps up on me. Is this how it's
Produced by Catherine Dunn.
Tell me when it's over, I got something
Produced
that
by
I
Jessie
need.
Stevens.
It won't leave.
Filmed by Catherine Dunn and Jack Reed.
It's a blessing in disguise.
Edited by Catherine Dunn.
You call home, your name is written in the sky.
Drone pilots Matt Ngozi, Sam Brooke and Paul Fallon. Featuring original music by Holly Carter. Special thanks to Polly Sutton. Special thanks to our cargo bike relay team, supported by the Adventure Syndicate, Nature Save Insurance, IMT Ecological Consultancy, Alp Kit, Ride with GPS, the crowdfunding community.